Welcome to Rock Celebrity's YouTube channel. Today we spoke to Dee Snider about the beginning of his musical career, his time with Twisted Sister, his future plans, and so much more. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon. Let's get into the interview. Please welcome a rock and metal legend himself. Hello, Dee. How are you?
I'm doing great. My life is amazing. I'm just like not in the mode of doing promotion or interviews. You kind of do all of these things in a group. So that's why I keep screwing up because I'm like on vacation, kind of my brain. But anyway, we're here. I almost
Yeah.
blew it again today. Family went out. We're going for brunch. I'm like, yes, I'm coming. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. I got to do an interview.
Well, I'm so excited and happy to have you here. And thank you again for joining us for this interview. And I want to be respectful of your time and jump right in with these questions. Is that okay with you?
100%. We're good for like an hour.
Okay. So first, I want to walk you down a memory lane and ask you about the beginning of your career. As a kid, you sang in a church choir. Now, I want to know if your love for music started in the choir or you had influences before that.
It was really kind of simultaneous. It was 1964, February. It was the day after the Beatles played on the Ed Sullivan Show. I didn't see the Ed Sullivan Show because my father had banned television in our house, so we didn't have television. We He wanted us to get back to reading books and making puzzles and building model airplanes. So while the world was watching the Beatles and being changed, I was building a fucking airplane. But the next day, everybody was talking about the Beatles on the bus stop. I was 64, so I was just going to turn 9 at that point. I was still 8. And I didn't even know what a Beatle was. But when I heard that everybody was screaming, I remember turning to my friend and saying, I'm going to be a Beatle. And I didn't know, I knew it was rock and roll, but at 8, I wasn't really, I mean, I knew Elvis and things, but didn't really know about rock and roll. And then I decided I was going to be a Beatle. Found out I couldn't be a Beatle. I had to be something else. The point being, I just started um, singing and forming little bands with my friends, and nothing's resonating. And everybody was singing. It's just like And about that time, I started singing in the church choir, and I started singing in the Glee Club. But everybody, all the kids sang in the church choir. All the kids sang in the Glee Club. Still didn't realize that I was a singer. It was just, I wanted to be a Beatle, and my mom made me go to church, and she sang in the choir, so I sang in the choir, and all my brothers and sisters sang in the choir. So it's just what we did. It wasn't until sixth grade chorus, Glee Club, we used to call it, and they were auditioning for soloists, and they were auditioning everybody. And I just got on the line, and I got up there, and the accompanist was playing, and I'm singing, and she just stops in the middle, and she turns to her assistant and said, "This boy sings like a bird." And I remember going, "What? I sing like a bird? I can sing? Like, that's a thing." And I got the solo, and then that was my first taste of like audience reaction. They weren't screaming like Beatles, but still, when I got up there and did my solo, all the parents cheered and applauded, and everybody was impressed. And I wasn't really a kid that impressed people. I was just sort of a dorky kid. So this was the first time people were actually going, "Whoa, listen to that guy sing." So that's how then the singing thing just progressed from there. And but I just liked singing, and I liked the fact that I was good at it. So I always was in the choir, and I was always auditioning for, and I was in a band. So it was like I was always just singing all the time.
But have you ever considered playing an instrument rather than just singing?
100%. I needed to play guitar. I mean, the Beatles all played an instrument and sang. So I took some lessons, and I pursued playing guitar and singing. What I discovered was I was terrible on guitar, and a band is only as good as its weakest member. And because I was so weak on guitar, I only could get into bands that weren't so good. But when I put the guitar down and just sang, the better bands wanted me to sing. Like if I would, they go, hey, if you don't play, we like to have you in our band. And I'm like, well, okay. And I don't have to carry any equipment. Perfect. I'm going to be a singer. So that was like, but I did initially play guitar, but I was just so terrible. And then realized, like I said, I could sing in a lot better bands and play with better musicians if I went with my strongest thing, which was singing.
Yeah, and then of course your career with Twisted Sister started, and I'm sure many of your bands remember your iconic look with the big blonde hair and that colorful, awesome makeup. But yeah,
Still
you
on my
still.
head. I just have it all glued down.
Did you have an inspiration behind that look? A name? Was there a name behind it?
Well, what do you mean by name? A person?
Name, yeah, a person. Yeah, a person behind that look.
Well, I was very enamored with the glitter bands of the early 70s. The New York Dolls, Alice Cooper, David Bowie, T Rex. So many of them had the glam look. And I really loved the idea, that they look so different and unique, and also that they seem so special. David Bowie, yeah, people used to almost not jokingly say it's like he's from another planet. He seemed to be some other, extraterrestrial being who floated down to Earth. Ziggy Stardust, and I love that mystique and mystery and stuff like that. So those bands, were the initial inspiration. And then the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Tim Curry and his look, that was like the final touches on the Dee Snider look. Was after I saw Tim Curry do his thing, and I noticed, oh, he's putting white up here and down here to accent, and I started. He's outlining his lips. Okay, I got that. So he was the final piece. But if you look at the Rocky Horror Show, it was originally a Broad Street or off Broad Street show in England from the early 70s, the glitter era. That's where it started. Then it got turned into a movie, and the movie failed, but then became a cult movie in the later 70s. So that again was that movie, that show was Rocky Horror was inspired by the glitter rock era as well.
Um, Talking about Twisted Sister, I actually wanted to remember an important name for the band's career, Lemmy Kilmister. I believe when he was headlining a show, he introduced you to the crowd, right?
Yeah. So the first, well, I'll tell. He's incredibly important, but I'll tell you uh, through a story about Lemmy's involvement and how important it was. So Lemmy had passed, and we were at his memorial service, and it was crazy who was there, who's who of rock and roll, Ozzy and Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, and I was there, and Guns N' Roses was there. I mean, it was just the outpouring, and with Lemmy, it wasn't just, it was road crew, it was regular people whose lives he had touched. I remember his shoe cobbler got up and spoke. Was so close with Lemmy because he was that kind of guy. And my wife, if we're listening to one person after person talking about how Lemmy had affected them and changed their life, and my wife leans over to me and says, "I think Lemmy was an angel." And so after the service, of course, not during the service, I said, "What do you mean by that?" And my wife's very spiritual. She says, "Well, she says, in my belief system, there are angels who come down to walk the earth and help us on our journey." She says, and I'm hearing all these stories from people and how he touched their lives and helped them. And she says, and I know how he helped you. When Twisted Sister, that first show you're talking about at Wrexham, we were going to get bottles right off that stage. Nobody was wearing makeup in 81 or 82 when we were with Motorhead at the Wrexham Stadium show. And he volunteered because he knew what the crowd was going to do to us. And also, thank you, Pete Way, who told Lemmy. Pete was producing our first album, Under the Blade. when we were doing the show, and he told Lemmy, hey, these guys are good guys, watch out for them. So Lemmy offered to bring us out on stage, and that just gave us breathing room, because people, man, the Motorhead crowd is a tough crowd. And like I said, there was no Motley Crue, there was no, Poison, there was no glam bands, and bands like Girl had gotten literally bottled off the stage at Reading. Anvil had gotten canned off the stage because Lips wore fishnet sleevelets, just sleevelets, and played guitar with a dildo. But you're gay, and they bottled them up. Canville, they called them. So Lemmy offered to introduce us, and just gave us that moment. I at the time when he spoke, I didn't know what the fuck he was saying. I was told later that he said, "Here's some friends of mine from America. Give them a listen." And the fact that the headliner came out during the daylight hours, I never. I mean, I don't do that. The headliner doesn't do that. And he came out. People were stunned. So they gave us just a little bit of listen, and it was enough to win the day. One of the greatest ovations and reactions we ever got, and it launched our career. Subsequently, Lemmy would just start showing up at our gigs. He would just he would just come in, and then he'd offer to bring us on, and then we became friendly, and then he'd come up and jam with us. Reading Festival, another show where we were getting everything thrown at us, until Pete Way, Fast Eddie Clark, and then Lemmy surprised everybody, because he and Fast Eddie were fighting at that time. The band had just broken up, and they all came out on stage and joined Twisted Sister. And the audience was just like, I'm getting chills now, because the audience was like, whoa, what the fuck? The gods of rock have just like blessed this band. And again, they gave us a listen, and like, whoa, they look fucked up, but they really rock. But back to the end of that story, I said to my wife, wait a minute, you're telling me that God sent down an angel that looked like a biker pirate to help us on our way? And she said to me, would you listen to someone with a long flowing white robe? And I looked at her and I said, well, if that is in fact a truth, and yeah, they'd send somebody that we would listen to, not somebody we would ignore, So, but I mean, when I heard those same stories, I knew how much Lemmy meant to us in our career, and I was not surprised to hear how much he had touched so many other people's careers and so many other people's lives.
Yeah, and also many people have crazy stories about Lemmy. I remember Dave Grohl once went to his apartment and saw him in his underwears or something. Do you have such a crazy story about him?
Yeah, I do. Well, first of all, nothing worse than seeing your hero in their underwear. I remember I was going to see Paul. It was Paul Rogers was doing his blues tour, and I went to the show just as a fan, and then someone who was working with him said, "Hey, Dee, why don't you come backstage?" I go, I just like, let me just show up, be a fan, cheer, pay your money, and walk out. You don't need to be treated. He said, no, Paul's going to want to meet you. Paul's going to want to meet you. And they rushed me downstairs, threw open the dressing room door, and they go, Paul, this is Dee Snider. And Paul was standing there in leopard G-string banana hammock, with holding his pants. He was just about to put pants on. I'm like, sorry. I'm like trying to not look, like, nice to meet you, Paul. I didn't mean to. They told me I had to, So anyway, you don't want to see that. Now, Lemmy, first time Lemmy and I, like, beyond that first introduction meeting, but next time we met, he pulled me aside, pulled me into the bathroom, and he broke out 2 lines of cocaine. Or I don't know if it was coke, could have been speed, knowing Lemmy. And he offered it to me, and I said, I don't get high. And in my mind, I'm going, well, that's the end of that relationship. I mean, I'm not going to get high just because he's one of my heroes, but at the same time, I had to be true to myself. But that's when people offer you their cocaine, or it's like it's a gift, and when you say no to a gift, it's like an insult. And Lemmy looked at me, he goes, okay, more for me. And he did both lines. And that was our relationship. So at the memorials, they had shots of Jack Daniels for everybody. And Suzette, who doesn't drink either, she said, well, I guess we should take a shot for Lemmy. I said, no. I said, I told Lemmy to drink. He said, okay, more for me. So Lemmy, There's more for you, brother. So I mean, then and it was crazy because we got along great. I'm totally clean and sober, but I have no problem with people who get high as long as they maintain, as long as they are who they are. They don't turn into another person. And I know people who just become dark and ugly and just it's just not, do your thing. Just don't let it affect me. And so Lemmy and I spent nights hanging out at Frank's Funny Farm. And that was interesting because, all right, he's dead. The other people involved are not. But I learned something very interesting. So we were there, and Lemmy and I, of course, we're on Lemmy's slot machine, and we're hanging out. Lemmy always played the machine. He liked to play that game in Frank's and at the Rainbow too. He always just stand there with his coins, put him in a slot, playing. And all of a sudden, Jeff Beck walks in, and with a couple people, and Jeff Beck across the room, and Jeff Beck and Lemmy sees Jeff, and Jeff sees Lemmy, and Jeff nods, and Lemmy nods, and Lemmy goes, "I'll be right back," and Lemmy goes over, and I see him selling cocaine to Jeff. So apparently the lower echelons rock stars sell the drugs to the higher echelon rock stars. Like to us, Lemmy's like all the way up here. But then there is, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page level. So apparently the Lemmy level sells the drugs to the big dogs. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of many great stories with them, but talking about a sad ending, Lemmy's ending. I want to talk about one of your statements regarding Twisted Sister's first breakup. You once said you kind of blamed yourself for it, and we actually released an article about this, and you reacted it on Twitter, which was amazing for me. Now, if you miraculously had a time machine, what would you do differently in those days?
Well, first of all, I don't kind of take responsibility. I take full responsibility. Okay. And if you want to get a laugh, I narrated a TV show on the Reels Network called Breaking the Band. It's about band breakups. And they did one on Twisted Sister. So I said, wait a second. I'm narrating a show about a band that I broke up. I said, it's kind of weird. And I said, can we at least put a camera in the room, in the booth? Like, so when I'm recording my thing and they're saying what a piece of shit I was, I can react or go, wait a second, So I mean, I told the guys at the band, we're all friends now. I say, hey guys, take off the kid gloves. Let's have fun with this. And if you ever look up Reels Network, Breaking the Band, Twisted Sister, you'll hear me narrating a show about me breaking up my own band and reacting to me breaking up my own band. What I would do differently is, and ultimately it's what I did wrong killed the goose that laid the golden egg. And that is nobody listened to me, but I was always being told I was wrong or I didn't know or whatever. And in the early days of Twisted Sister, I was alienated. They were already a band. They were older guys. They were friends from New York. I was this younger guy from Long Island, the suburbs. They kind of treated me like I was a kid, and I was a kid, in retrospect. But I had a chip on my shoulder. And once the band broke, before the band broke, it was very much a democracy. Like, even though I wrote all the songs, I would bring 25 songs to the band and say, here's my songs. Which ones do you like? And the band would vote on the songs. Anything we did, all the ideas creatively were my ideas, but I would always bring them to the band and say, what do you think of this? And then the band would say, yeah, that's cool. Or we don't really like that or whatever. And, once the band broke and we had all the success, I didn't want to listen to anybody anymore. So I didn't ask anybody, like, what do you think? What songs do you like? I just said, here's the songs we're doing on the album. This is what we're doing. And I just took complete control. And everybody needs a sounding board. Everybody needs to bounce ideas off people and get feedback. And we never like to hear negative. You don't like to hand an article in and have the editor go, you're hoping the editor's going to go, it's perfect, but when they go, well, this is good, but I don't like this, you know, we want them to say it's perfect. We don't want to hear that shit, you know. But Stephen King, one of the greatest writers, in history, most prolific, he thanks his editor for saving his life. The guy who's been editing his books forever. The Stand, the greatest book he ever wrote, was originally over 700 pages, and his editor cut it down to 400 something. So we need someone to say no and tell us we're wrong. And I just shut the whole band out. And ultimately, the band's success fell because I didn't know it all. I started making mistakes with my ego.
You mentioned about having an editor. That's, I believe it's like a right hand in life. Do you have someone like that in your personal or career life?
Give me 1 second. I think somebody put the heat on in our house. We live in California, and we don't need the heat.
Of course.
Yeah, I was right. Somebody put the heat on. Anyway, I got the window open and the heat's on. What's going on? That somebody's my wife. And speaking of my wife, Suzette. We've been together 46 years. And although we disagree with things like, when I would have ideas for the look of the band and, or the direction or whatever, for the look, because she did all the makeup, the hair, the costumes. Suzette will always say, and with our kids too, because she's a pro makeup and hair person and clothing maker. She says, I don't want to tell people how to look, or I try to make them the best fit what they want to be. I want to make them the best that, even though I may not think that this is what they should do. And like in the early days of Twisted Sister, I was hell bent on dressing feminine and wearing women's clothing. So Suzette made me the craziest, most feminine, fishnets, garters, shorty tops. But gradually, she pushed me towards being more. She says, "You're not pretty. You're scary. You're not wearing makeup. You're wearing war paint." She says, "You think you're putting makeup on? That's war paint. I watch you in the room." He's like, and you're like, that's not what a woman does. When a woman does it, man, you're like, and then the clothes, she started to suddenly less and less feminine, more tattered and, and torn looking. And somebody called me Raggedy Ann on acid once. And, she said, that's, the shoulder pads. She started Mad Max glitter glam. She started guiding me in a direction that I didn't know that I needed to be in. So, so she has been infuriating at times, by the way, because she's right too much, and I can't stand it because she disagrees with me a lot. She's the one who always tells me no, and when I didn't want to hear no back then, we nearly broke up, but we made it through that because I got my act together. So Suzette has just been an incredible force for the band.
I must admit, I admire your relationship. Whenever I see your Instagram page on special days like Valentine's Day, your anniversary, I always see your post and say, how does he come up with the most romantic captions for every single special day? It's so special what you have.
Well, thank you. That's appreciated. Look, you feel blessed, and so I do radio. I've been doing radio for 35 years, hence the mic. I'm in my radio studio. And I was interviewing Kevin Bacon on one of my episodes, the actor. And he's been married to Kira Sedgwick for over 20 years now. They've been together. So we were talking about long relationships in the entertainment industry. And Kevin said to me, I don't think there's any more or less successful marriages and relationships in entertainment. You just never hear about the successes. You only hear about failures. And I said, oh, it's interesting. And I started to sort of pay attention. And there are a lot of successful, I've got a list of well over 100 entertainers, rock and rollers, actors who have been, look, Bono's over 40 years, Angus Young and his wife over 40 years, Bon Jovi and his wife over 40 years. Nobody talks about it. And so I like to wave a flag for, and one of my recent posts, it was anniversary, and I said, for all you people out there who are doing the work, to stay together, congratulations to all of us, and the point, what I had learned was that, and I said this in my tweet, the only difference between couples that stay together and couples that break up is couples that stay together won't accept divorce as an option. And once you take that off the table, well, now what are you left with? Figure it out or hate each other, figure it out. And that's this. And it was actually a marriage counselor that told me, was one of the first things when we were in marriage counseling. He said, it's not the problems they have. They're all, married couples have all the same problems. Says just the ones that stay together say, well, we're not breaking up. So what are we going to do about it? So anyway, but yeah, thanks for appreciating that.
Of course. It's also about being passionate about things. I believe when it comes to your music or your other ventures, you're passionate about the things you do. So I actually want to talk about, speaking of passion, your censorship battle with PMRC. I think it's an iconic moment in your career. So I want to ask you about those times. What do you remember from those times?
To be totally frank, it wasn't that I was so, political and so like, fight, censorship kind of thing, in the literal sense. Is we were one of the bands being targeted, and I was at the height of my popularity. And, I was being arrested for profanity and having shows canceled by religious groups and things like that. And they asked me if I would speak. And I said, absolutely, thinking that I was leading the army, thinking that they were asking me to carry the flag into battle. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'll do that. More like, we're the army and we're coming to get you kind of thing. Not so much as I got something to say. I thought I was given the honor of carrying the flag. Of course, being intelligent and clean and sober, I took it very seriously. I didn't go in there and make a joke out of it. And but at the same time, I was not. I look back now and I look at those pictures and I look at the video footage. And I say, how did I walk with balls that big in pants that tight? I mean, you can't even see how big they are. And I somehow managed to get in there and oh my God, I could look how fucking cocky you are. I mean, I don't know. I mean, certainly I'd go back today. I mean, I'm ready to go back, and I lived everything I said to the T. I've stood for everything I still stand for. There's ultra right winger fascist pieces of shit who are saying Dee changed. No, I didn't change. You changed. You weren't always a fascist. You became this conservative right wing, no choice motherfucker. And sorry, I'm starting to get heated. But anyway, but I said, but I've never varied I've never varied from my stance, who I was, and what I believed in. I never have. And but I still like walking in there, as we approached. There's actually a book coming out called He's Not Going to Take It. It's it's not a book. It's actually a graphic novel. It's like 120 pages long. So it's like a comic book, but done very seriously, legitimately about the whole thing. But also like what they're getting into in this graphic novel is what made me the person that speaks out. And it wasn't until we started interviewing for this book that I realized it was because I was told to shut up my whole life. From my dad, from my people always were just sort of, I wasn't the popular kid, so nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. Nobody, and I had something to say. So once I got the microphone, the name of my memoirs, Shut Up and Give Me the Mic, I mean, once they gave me the mic, I have not shut up since. So I will not shut up. But go and just, I didn't realize how big the event was, how significant that the world was watching, and as I got closer and closer, and with the protesters and the satellite trucks and all the news reporters and walking in and the camera pit and everything is like, holy shit, what did I agree to? Well, I said, what did I walk into? And, it has become an iconic moment, a legendary moment. Tom Morell recently said that Dee Snider saying motherfucker in front of the Senate was one of the great moments in rock and roll. Sick motherfucker was, I believe, what I said. But hey, they asked, so I had to tell them. It's at the time, though, I didn't feel supported by the community, by the other bands. I felt very much isolated. I felt most people just went quiet, and the fans didn't really understand the significance of what was going on. But as the years have gone by, practically a day doesn't go by somebody doesn't walk up and shake my hand and say thank you for doing what you did. So I'd still, I did the right thing. That's why they said, there's a saying, do the right thing. I'd do it again, even given all the circumstances. Even if I knew what I know, somebody had to speak out, and I was given an opportunity, so I did it.
And you said some people think you've changed, but when you look at your past, I believe there wasn't a moment when your principles have changed, because there was a time when your music career was put on a halt and you worked in different jobs to provide for your family. You were the same person during that time. I want to ask you, if you had a job during that time, that might be surprising for your fans to hear.
Oh, 100%. I mean, so here you are. My career's falling apart. Grunge hits. Nobody, basically, I was told, we don't sing like you anymore. We don't look like you anymore. We don't perform like you anymore. We don't write songs like you anymore. Everything you did, everything you dedicated your life to isn't being done anymore. No one's interested. And that was the truth. Heavy metal, hair metal, whatever you want to call it, could not have been deader. And here I was, I had already overextended my advances and royalties stream. They just dried up, just closed up. And I've got 3 kids. I'm married, and like, what are you gonna do? Gonna kill yourself? I literally couldn't book a show. I mean, literally couldn't sing anything. Desperado had failed. Widowmaker, I think we were playing with Widowmaker at that point. The idea of Widowmaker, but Widowmaker didn't take off either. They had no success with Widowmaker. So the first job after we sold everything, we went bankrupt. Again, to my wife, Suzette, she was with me when I had nothing, with me when I had everything. When I lost everything, I didn't think for 1 second that she was going to leave. It wasn't even is she going to leave me now? No, she just said, you know what, I can go work. She didn't work in a beauty parlor, but she says, I can go work in a beauty parlor. And she got a job, the job only job I could find. I got paid. Well, we only had 1 car, so Suzette kept the car when she was the kids. I rode a bicycle to an office where I answered phones for $200, a receptionist. And people would walk in the office and they'd see me. This is 1990, let's see, 91, 92, 93. So, not that far from the heyday of Twisted Sister. And they go, hey, aren't you? And I would lie. I was so embarrassed. I would say, no, I'm not. I just look like him. And they couldn't believe that Dee Snider would be sitting at a desk answering phones. So they'd go, wow, it's crazy. You look just like him. I go, I know, right? If only I was him, But So that, that was the first job I got, riding a bicycle to a desk job, answering phones for a couple $100. And then at night, because my wife was working at a beauty salon, but she could pick up money on weekends doing makeup and hair for weddings. So I would go out to parking lots and put flyers, paper with, hair and makeup by Suzette, call here, $100. And I'd go out at night and put those flyers on cars. And I remember one night I was in a parking lot of a what do they call it? Well, a venue where they have weddings, and they were having a wedding fair where potential future brides come to pick out things. So I knew there was a lot of people who could use the service. And I was there and I'm flying the cars, and the security sees me and they start chasing me, and I start running. And I wasn't running because I was afraid I was going to get thrown into, jail. They weren't cops. I was afraid they were going to recognize me and say, "What are you doing out here in the rain, putting flyers on the windshields of cars?" I mean, but hey, I needed money, and there was there was nobody looking for 80s rock stars at that point. And then I slowly started working my way back. Then I moved to working in a recording studio where I managed the recording studio. And that was weird. All these people coming in here going, "But you're Dee Snider." I told me I was Dee Snider, and they just shut their mouths because they figured I owned the place, but I didn't. I was just working there. And then I started auditioning and doing voiceover work. And I started doing radio. And all of a sudden, I started making money. And then the retro thing started coming in. So I was able to go out and do shows as me, and as doing Twisted Sister. And all of a sudden, now I'm starting to make money again. And then Twisted reunites. And then, I've done movies, I've done TV. I do so many different things, So we're kicking ass now. But it was very dark there in the early 90s.
Yeah, I was gonna actually talk about that because you had your radio show. You were the voice of some characters in video games and some series, and you've been an actor. So you had many ventures outside of music. Do you have a special memory regarding those projects, whether it's about a person or the project itself?
Doing voiceover, I'm blessed with a voice. People like my sound of my speaking voice. And it's like the easiest job in the world. And the funny thing is, when you go in and you're doing a session, some of the voiceover guys are so cocky. They are like difficult to work with. So they'll say, "Dee, would you mind doing one more?" Like, I'm just talking. Sure. What? I said, "This is so fucking easy." 2-hour show. That's tough. Standing here talking on a microphone, I'll do it again and again and again. No problem. But doing morning radio for 3 years, that's like, getting up 4 o'clock every day, on the air at 6, 4 hours of talk with a team. Love that. Great memories from it. I love a microphone, and people were stunned that, I had a top rated show. My syndicated show, House of Hair, is 27 years now. We've been on the air. So I've had a very successful radio career, which is great, and voiceover career, which is great. One of the greatest things I ever did, though, I'll just say one thing, doing reality TV. I've done way too much reality TV. I've stopped now. But I learned that my fellow entertainers, we have a lot more in common than we differ. I roomed with Bobby Brown for 2 weeks, and we shared a room. And on a reality show that was kind of like Big Brother, it was called Gone Country. We had to learn to be country singers, and but I learned, what, the music's different, but our paths are very similar, and what we deal with is very similar, and our experience was similar. So that was interesting, doing all that reality TV, Celebrity Apprentice, all those shows like that. My favorite experience was Broadway. Being in Rock of Ages on Broadway for 3 months. A, it was something I never even thought of doing. B, I attacked it and did it well. The reviews attest to that. But experiencing the camaraderie of a cast and the family that a cast is and becomes, was something and doing 8 shows a week, it was something very different experience than the rock and roll experience. rock and roll doesn't quite have that. Even though you feel like you're a gang, Twisted Sister was a gang. I don't think we had that camaraderie. The cast of a show, including the backstage crew and stuff, everybody becomes very close because when you're doing 8 shows a week, you've got no life. You're just there. This is your life every day. You see these people and you hang out with these people and you get to know these people and you get to love these people. So that was one of the great experiences of my life. And from that point, I actually wrote a musical called The Rock and Roll Christmas Tale because I was so inspired and staged it in Chicago, staged it in Toronto, just because I wanted to create something that and those experiences were the same. That group of people with a common goal, trying to entertain a group of, it was just a great doing that, those kind of shows, great experience.
You mentioned Broadway, and I want to ask you about an album, Dee Does Broadway. You once called that album a career suicide or else brilliance. I want to know how you make those decisions when you are in a place where maybe not every one of your fans just expect you to do a Broadway album, but you feel right with the music you just release.
It's who I am, and someone said the other day, you're genuine. I'm not trying to do or say what is going to be popular or everybody's going to agree with. I always tell people, you got to like it first yourself before you expect anybody else to like it. If you try to, I did an ill-fated record, and it's not, I did two records that, I wish I didn't do. And Dee Does Broadway is not one of them. One was Never Let the Bastards Wear You Down. It was all, I was approached by Koch Records. They threw money at me. I said, I haven't written a song since 1992, 3. At that point, I said, they said, well, do you have any old tapes or anything? I'm like, yeah. I go, but it's the outtakes. It's the stuff that didn't make the record. It's the stuff we didn't play. And they go, well, we'll give you, and they just offered me like stupid money. And I said, okay, all right. I thought some of these songs, I like the songs, but they didn't make the cut. And there's usually a reason they didn't don't make the cut. It's not the best stuff, whatever. But so I did that record, and people call it my first solo album. And it wasn't really a solo album. It was just a bunch of songs I had that, somebody paid me a lot of money to go and sing. So there's that one. And then the other one is We Are the Ones. Although it's got moments, it's great. Someone challenged me to do a mainstream rock record. And I said, well, who's writing these songs? Because I don't know. And they said, everybody's going to want to write these songs. And so all these top songwriters were writing songs for me. And some of the stuff was really good and whatever have you. But it wasn't true to who I was. It was a challenge. Could I record a more mainstream record? And I did, but I wish I hadn't, but again, I don't, it's not regret that I have. It's just that I look at them and go, but something like the Dee Does Broadway, again, coming off of Broadway, meeting the community, I'd always liked Broadway shows and always thought there was rock in Broadway songs. And I wanted to do this record, and my manager said, who's going to buy it? I said, probably nobody. I said, but see if anybody will make this record. And somebody did. As a matter of fact, it's coming out on vinyl now. Not by popular demand, just because I own it and there's somebody who wants to put it out on vinyl. And the record's great. The Broadway community flipped out. So many Broadway people say it's their favorite rock record. I had Patti LuPone on there and Bebe Neuwirth and Cyndi Lauper. I did like these Broadway greats on this record with me. And I was over the moon about the record, still am, but it was a thud, but it was where I was at. It's what I wanted to do. I felt inspired to do it, and I did it. Just like I was, written a novel. It's called Frats. It's coming out next year. Not about me. It's a fictional book, although it's based on a time when I grew up. But do I expect all the rockers to buy it? My fans to buy it? No, I'm not. I'm not going to sell it to them at that. I'm now trying to become a writer. And if you like my writing style, you're interested in this story I'm telling, please buy my book and read it. But it's not because you're a fan of my music. It's something completely different for me to do.
I'm looking at the time and we're running out of it. So I want to ask you.
I'm good. If you still have questions, I'm good until 10 after
10
the hour.
after. Oh, okay.
10 minutes after the hour.
Okay.
If you still have questions.
Okay. I have questions for you. It's okay for me. So on Twitter, you're very active on social media. And I actually love every once in a while going onto your Twitter page and just scroll through your tweets. So you never know what's going to come out. And a few months ago, you said Twisted Sister gets so many offers for a reunion, of course, but you said you were not interested. So is there a slight scenario when you would maybe consider doing it, or it's just I'm done, I don't think I can do it anymore?
I get first of all, Twisted gets offers all the time, and I get personal offers all the time. I've told my people no more live shows. I'm done. I don't want the audience to watch me get old. They've been watching me get old, but fortunately, I've been able to hold up physically, vocally. Vocally is still my strongest thing. I'm starting to have I've shoulder problems and it's, I don't want to sit there talking old man talking about his problems. Shit wears out, and I'm cool with that because George Carlin, who George Carlin is, the comedian. He once said that we're not supposed to cross the finish line in perfect condition, unscarred, untouched, just like brand new. We're supposed to fall across the finish line, battered, broken, bruised, scraped, cut, scarred, because we did something in our life. So I've had knee surgeries and shoulder surgeries and throat surgeries. It's because I did something, so I'm cool with that. And I'm fighting the good fight. I'm always, trying to fix things and whatever. But at the same time, I can't deliver a live show the way people have come to expect Dee Snider. And a radio personality in America named Eddie Trunk said, you're right, Dee. When I told him, he said, you painted yourself in a corner. It's a saying. You set the bar that you come running out of the gate and you're like headbanging and run. And people expect that. They expect Dee Snider to be full on. So if you come out, walk out, and you're like, you're rocking, but he goes, would be disappointing. And another, a writer once said, he was actually reviewing a Twisted Sister reunion show, and the review was great. But he said, when a reunion show is good, it makes you feel young again. When a reunion show is bad, it makes you realize how old you've gotten. And he said, Twisted Sister made me feel like I was 19 years old, and I'm getting chills now because that was what I wanted. I had seen UFO when UFO first reunited with Michael Schenker and Pete and Phil, the original lineup. I went to see them in New York City, and I'm getting chills now. I was losing my shit. I was in the audience. I remember some guy going, "Hey, aren't you Dee Snider?" I said, "Shut the fuck up." I was like, I'm not. One second. One second. It's a family member. I'm just telling them I'm in an interview. So I mean, I was just like, they made me feel like I was a kid, seeing they looked good. They looked like them and they were rocking like them. This was 2000, early 2000s, maybe. Yeah, something like that. And then I was so caught up in that. I traveled to the next town. I said, my wife, we're going to the next town. She's like, we're following the band? I said, yes, we're following the band. I want to feel that again. I want to feel that. They were so good. I followed the band to the next town and went to see them 2 nights in a row. So that is what I always wanted people to feel with Twisted Sister. And I feel in 2016 when we retired, well, at least I was delivering that level. Not everybody was delivering that level. And that's one of the reasons too. My band was realized they were getting, look, AJ died. They were getting heavy and big and not healthy. And I was trim and, and I was still like going for it. Then I did a couple solo albums and I was still able to hold my own. But on the last, For Love of Metal shows, I was saying, you know what, it's time to stop. So at that point, I thought I was stopping. I put out one more album. I think 2 shows. And I just said, yeah, you know what, I'm done. So no, I don't see a scenario, maybe for a song, maybe to get together to do a song somewhere for charity or for fun or for an event, but to get out and do 90 minutes, 2 hours, 18, 20 songs after song after song after song, trying to live up to a standard that I set for myself when I was in my 20s. No.
I mean, when it comes to performing live, is the physicality the hardest part of it?
Yeah. Well, no, it's all physical. The singing's physical, the performing's physical. I mean, I remember times where, because when you're on full tour, which Twisted Sister was not in our reunion days. So that made it better. But when we were doing, 5 days a week, show after show after show, I remember, like, as I was rocking and aggressively, being in physical pain the entire time and counting down the songs, going 10, 9, 8, till it was done. And I could stop feeling pain because I mentally always approached a live show like an athlete, an Olympic athlete, an Olympic runner who wins. When he crosses that line, his lungs are burning. He a lot of times stumbles and falls to the ground and cuts his knees up and his legs. And he's gasping for air, but he won. He gave everything he had and he won. And he feels great afterwards. I always felt great after the show, after winning and after doing it. But during the process, it hurt my throat, it hurt my body, it hurt everything. And this is in my 20s. I remember the regimen every morning was wake up, coffee immediately in the mouth because I couldn't even talk the night before. I go to the bathtub, I fill it with hot water, I get in the bathtub and I would just lay in the bathtub with a cup of coffee, soaking my body because it was so stiff and aching. I'm in my 20s, but that's how hard and aggressive I was performing that I was, and I couldn't stop. People say, well, why don't you do it a little easier? And the times when I said, well, okay, maybe I'll try and lighten up maybe it was my ego, maybe it was whatever, but it would go, if I wasn't pushing as hard as I could at all times, then I felt like I was cheating the audience and I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I don't really miss that. I miss like the afterglow. I miss the feeling. There were times somebody was asking me this, when you wasn't autopilot, but when everything was working and your throat was good and your body was good and you were just, and it was like you weren't even thinking and it was just coming out of you and the band's playing and there was no technical difficulties. And, there's a lot of moments like that. Those are the magical moments. And when the audience, in that moment when the whole audience sort of becomes one body in a song, in a moment, and everybody's with you and you have that feeling, I'm getting chills again. I mean, that to me was what it was all about. But it was a lot of work to get there. I would never leave my room. I was always stretching, soaking, warming up, getting ready, and then after the show, I just go right back to my room and just collapse on the bed, but it was those moments are what it was all about, And one of the things I told people I was going to miss from not performing was the reckless abandon of a live show. And I don't know if you know what the term reckless abandon means. It's, there's certain things you're going to do, in this song or that song. But a lot of it was just like a kid. Kids don't think about when they walk into a room, they're not thinking, I'm going to walk across the room. They fall, they roll, they get up, they jump, they cut over here, they look at this, they look at that. It's just like the brain it's like an ADD brain where you're just reacting and you're not even having a chance to really think about what you're doing. You're just doing it. And I said, that is the favorite thing about live performing, that because you don't have that feeling except when you're a child. When you get to be an adult, everything we do is so thought out. We're just so, we're going to the stores, we're going to work, we're working the house. We know it's all thought out. Kids don't think shit out. They just do it. And I had that feeling throughout my musical career when I was on stage, that thing where I was just doing it and felt childlike. It's awesome.
Even now you're talking about it, just like, it's so passionate. It sounds like you said, even reliving it as you just describing the feeling. It's amazing. Now looking back at your career, do you have a time when you felt like, I made it, I'm Dee Snider, I'm a rock star?
Well, I remember the moment where I knew Twisted Sister had made it. And we had released Stay Hungry in May. And in America, back then, it would take a while. There wasn't, internet or whatever. So it would take, it was almost like 3-4 weeks more to get into the system where the records were available, where the radio stations had it. It was like, people were mailing things back then. And in in Europe, because the countries were smaller, it was easier to reach the people. So we released the album and immediately went to the to UK and Europe and toured. And we were hearing that it was going well. We get, records are selling. You're getting ads on the radio stations. People reactions are great, reviews are great, but you're at such a distance, thousands of miles away. It still didn't resonate. Still felt the same. So we came home from that tour, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe it's June, July, and I remember come home. And my wife and I still lived in our first house. We had to move shortly after, very quickly, because things got out of hand. But I didn't know they were out of hand yet, that fame thing. And Suzette, always the great leveler with me, come home, I am a god. Yeah, go get some milk. We need milk for the baby. Oh, okay. And I got in the car. I'm driving up to the store to get some milk. And I put on the radio, and We're Not Going to Take It was playing. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a first. Turn on the radio and my song's on the radio. Cool. And I said, I wonder what they're playing on the other stations. I hit the button and We're Not Going to Take It was playing. I said, wow, that's pretty cool. It was one other rock station in the area. And I said, all right, I'm going for it. Boom, hit the button. We're Not Going to Take It was playing. All 3 stations playing. Everybody was, I said, holy shit. We did it. I knew we did it at that moment. And then when I tried to go out to a restaurant with my son, the kids, one of those where the kids can play, and we walked in and the whole place turned around and started running toward me. I just had to grab my son and said, we got to go. I said, oh shit. Then everybody started coming outside, parking outside my house and playing music, and we had to leave and get out of the house. That moment where every station in my area was playing our song, I knew we were stars.
You mentioned how when you first was introduced to fame, you had to leave the restaurant, but what was the biggest downsides of the fame?
The biggest downside is the loss of privacy. And I didn't know how to. Well, back then it was, I was the new face, so there was that incredible curiosity, and I didn't know how to. I also didn't know how to play it down. I was walking around with platform shoes and Twisted Sister jacket on, and my hair's out to here, and a bodyguard, and I'm going in limousines, and I go, why is everybody crowding? Why are everybody looking at me? Well, the circus just came to town. I mean, you're walking around like you like from another planet, you're drawing attention to yourself. You are causing the attention. I learned years later that if I just pull my hair back, put on a baseball hat, got rid of the bodyguard and just went out with my family. People still looked and people still would come over, but the minute I said, how you doing? I'm with my family tonight. And they go, oh, cool. And everybody would, I could tone the whole thing down and just have a more normal life. So, but it took me a while to realize that because, I wanted that fame, but I didn't realize, I didn't realize I was going to have to not disguise myself, but tone myself down in order to function in normal society with a family. But initially there was that loss of privacy, when we had that house, a little house, and then people were parking their cars in front and all night playing music and coming to and knocking on our doors. And there was in restaurants. I mean, my bodyguard in the 80s, he had been a bodyguard for Freddie Mercury, he had been a bodyguard for Mick Jagger and for David Bowie. He said he never experienced with them what he experienced with me. And I at the time I thought it was because I'm a bigger star, but I realized it's because they're little. They're all short people. They're like 5'3", 5'4", all three of those guys. I mean, they're little. I'm 6'1", and then I had on my 5-inch platform shoes, and I'm like, and my hair was up to here. So I mean, so this gigantic thing walked in the room, this freak show, where those guys were sort of sliding under the radar down low. So, but he said he never experienced anything like, in the 80s with Dee Snider, like he experienced with these other people.
Well, I'm checking the time because, as I said, I want to be respectful of your time. And I mean, that's all we have, I believe. It was such a pleasure and honor talking to you. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
Is there one last question you have that you would like to ask? You don't have to, but if there's one that you I didn't get to ask.
Well, I can ask you about your personal life, actually. Was there a time in the near past that you felt like this is the happiest I felt in a long time?
100%. The rebirth, after fucking it all up in the late 80s with my band, struggling, trying to put a couple things together that failed, going through bankruptcies, working that desk job, working all that stuff. I fought, and we fought. I couldn't have done it without Suzette. She was such a partner in every sense of the word, and figured out what can Dee Snider do now? And I tell you, I did voiceover, I did radio, I started writing, and I was selling TV shows, and I've been, I've become quite a good writer, actually, if I do say so. I put a lot of decades into it now. And we started, suddenly we were out of debt, and we had new cars, and we were building our dream house. And it was, this was in the, this was like early 2000, around 2000. And so, Twisted has not reunited. There's no real, none of that's back. This is all the new careers I built for myself. And my wife and I had been through the darker times, relationship wise, financially. We struggled, and now we had money, and we had 4 children now, and we could go on vacations, and we could eat at nice so it was the early 2000s when all of a sudden, I had gotten through the hell of the mistakes I made and was on the right path, and I've been consistent ever since. We've had, and our life's been great, and we got a house on the beach in Belize and a house by the beach in California, and our kids are all grown up and they're happy and healthy, and we just do whatever we want, go on safari. We just came back from actually, and we're just living our best life. But it was, like I said, around 2000, radio show took off. I was making money. We're building this great house, and the kids are each getting their own bedroom. They weren't sharing bedrooms, and all those things that you wanted for them to have, but you couldn't because you fucked up. You lost all your money, and you couldn't give your family what you wanted to give them. treat them the way they should be treated, the way you felt they should be treated. And then that finally broke through and came out of it all. So yeah, that was the moment. And we were happy. We are happy. We're happy.
Well, it feels as though when you're speaking about your life right now, you feel accomplished about everything.
Oh yeah. I keep saying, well, there's many things that I want. I've always got things I want to do. I'm going to be directing a movie. We got this novel coming out. I've got, a lot of these 2 animated kids shows that I'm involved with. So I've always got a new project, and I'm more interested in the new stuff than the old stuff. I'd rather talk to you about the latest thing I'm working on as opposed to the successes I've had in the past. I'm always more excited about the new stuff. At the same time, if they took me today, and and the big man asked me, said, "Well, any reason I should let you stay?" I go, "Well, to be fair, you've been pretty cool, and I've had a great time. All my dreams came true, top to bottom, and so if I gotta go, I gotta go." I said, "I got some more stuff I like. If you don't mind, I'll hang out. I got plenty of creative ideas to work on. I wouldn't mind doing a bunch of those things. I got some films I want to direct." I said, "But if this is it, I'll just say thank you and leave the stage." So yeah, so I'm blessed.
So there's nothing you say, oh, I should have done this too, or I'm planning to do this in the near future.
Oh yes, plenty of those things, but it's more like creative ideas, like reissuing my teenage survival guide, which and there's a lot of these little, the Strangeland sequel. I've never been able to get it off the ground, and it's a cult horror film that has great popularity on a cult level, and it's really frustrating that I've never been able to get that done. And I would love to. I'm doing another horror movie that I'm directing, hoping that if I can make that success, then maybe people will say, "Well, he's been pushing this Strangeland 2 thing for the last 25 years. Maybe we should give him the chance to do it." So there's those things,
I see.
but not real regrets, not regrets like that.
No, not big regrets.
No.
I'm looking at
Well, maybe that I was a bit of an asshole. I was a bit of an asshole. Let me see. 8:05. I can't talk to you right now. Oh, wait a second. Maybe I have to. Hello? Isaac? Oh, outside? I'm coming out now. You ready for me? Okay, cool. Okay. Thanks, man. I'll be right back. Bye. Got construction workers here. Putting up gates. We need gates. Keep them out. Keep the people out. Okay. Anyway, pleasure talking to you. I'm glad we finally made it happen. And with that, I got to bid you adieu. Are you German?
I know.
Are you German?
I'm Turkish.
Turkish. Then I don't know. Oh, I love Turkey.
Yeah,
I didn't know where you're from. So your accent is very slight. I did at the radio station.
You came here for in Istanbul, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm currently in Istanbul.
Yeah. Oh, amazing city. Beautiful. Yeah, we have nothing but raves. Someplace we need to return very soon. Okay, with that, I bid you adieu, and until we meet again. Okay.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you again.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.